You know what's funny about getting played? It's not the money that keeps you awake at night. It's not even the lies. It's that moment when you realize you were never special. You were just Tuesday's shift while she had Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday covered too. I thought I'd found my second chance at love in Thailand. Turns out I was just another pension check in her rotation. If our stories help you see the truth behind the paradise, hit that like button and let us know where you're watching from. This story came from one of our viewers who reached out after watching our channel for months. He asked us to change some details but wanted other men to hear what really happened. I sold everything I owned in Ohio when I turned 58. My divorce had been final for 6 months, and I was tired of looking at the same 4 walls where my ex-wife had made me feel worthless for 23 years. The construction business had been good to me, and I'd saved every penny I could for this moment. Thailand seemed like the perfect place to start over. Warm weather year-round, cheap cost of living, and no one knew me there. No one could remind me of my failures back home. My kids barely talked to me anyway. They blamed me for the divorce like their mother's affairs were somehow my fault. "Dad, you work too much," my daughter had said when I told her about moving to Thailand. "Maybe if you'd paid more attention to Mom, she wouldn't have needed to find it elsewhere." 23 years of busting my back to provide for them, and that's what I got. So I took my retirement money, bought a one-way ticket, and found a small apartment near Patong Beach in Phuket. The first month was lonely as hell, but it felt like freedom. I'd walk the beach every morning, watching the sunrise over the Andaman Sea. The heat felt good on my old bones. Back in Ohio, I'd wake up stiff and sore from years of construction work. Here, the warm air seemed to loosen everything up. I'd found a local coffee shop, run by an old Thai man who spoke broken English. We'd sit together in comfortable silence, him reading his Thai newspaper, while I tried to figure out my new life. The loneliness was crushing some days, but it was my loneliness. No one was telling me I wasn't good enough. That's where I met Porn. Everyone called her Weepa. She managed a beachside bar about a 10-minute walk from my apartment. I'd started going there for dinner because the food was good and cheap. Most of the bar girls would try to get drinks out of tourists, but Weepa was different. She actually ran the place, handled the money, dealt with suppliers. She had responsibilities. "You're American?" she asked one evening when I was eating alone. Her English was clear, much better than most locals I'd met. "I can tell by your accent. What state?" "Ohio," I said, "but I'm retired now, moved here permanent." "Oh, that's nice. You like Thailand?" We started talking, and 3 hours passed like nothing. She told me about her family, how her mother was sick and needed expensive medicine. Her younger brother was in university studying engineering. She talked about wanting to open her own restaurant someday, something more upscale than the typical tourist places. I found myself telling her about my construction business, how I'd built it from nothing. She seemed genuinely interested, asking smart questions about project management and dealing with workers. "You sound like good boss," she said when I finished, describing a difficult hotel project I'd completed. Fair but strong. Thai people respect that. When she smiled, something inside my chest loosened up for the first time in years. This wasn't just politeness or bar girl charm. This felt real. Within 2 weeks, we were spending every evening together. Weepa would finish her shift at the bar around 9, then come find me at my apartment. She started bringing ingredients and cooking traditional Thai dishes I'd never heard of. Som tam larb, things that weren't on any tourist menu. She'd teach me Thai words while we ate, laughing when I mispronounced everything. "Your tongue is too stiff," she'd say, touching my arm. Thai language is like music, you have to make it flow. She took me to temples I never would have found on my own, explained the Buddhist ceremonies, taught me how to show proper respect. On weekends, we'd take her motorcycle to small fishing villages where no tourists went. Old women would smile at us chattering to Weepa in rapid Thai while looking at me curiously. "They say you look kind," Weepa would translate. "They ask if you take care of me." I started giving her money to help with her mother's medical bills. Not huge amounts at first, just a few $100s here and there. Weepa would cry when I handed her the cash, kissing my cheek and saying I was saving her family. I felt useful, again needed. My ex-wife had made me feel like my money was the only thing I was good for, but this was different. Weepa appreciated everything I did. "I never met man like you," she whispered one night as we lay in bed. "American men in movies are always angry or selfish, but you have good heart." When she suggested I meet her family, I knew this was serious. We drove 2 hours inland to a small farming village where her mother lived in a wooden house on stilts. The old woman was tiny and frail, but her eyes were sharp. She studied my face while Weepa explained something in Thai. "My mother says you have honest face," Weepa translated. "She says Western men usually come to Thailand for wrong reasons, but you are different." I started staying at Weepa's place most nights. She had a small apartment above a noodle shop, nothing fancy, but it felt like home in a way my place in Ohio never had. We developed routines, coffee together in the morning before she went to work, long walks on the beach in the evening, weekend trips to islands where we'd snorkel and eat fresh seafood. Weepa would curl up against me at night and talk about our future. Maybe we could buy a small house together, something with a garden where she could grow herbs for her restaurant. I could help her with the business side, use my construction experience to make sure everything was built properly. For the first time since my divorce, I was planning more than just the next day. "You make me feel safe," she'd whisper in the dark, "like everything will be okay." But then I started noticing things. Weepa's phone would buzz constantly with messages she'd quickly dismiss as work stuff. She'd be texting someone in English, but when she noticed me looking, she'd switch to Thai. Her explanations didn't always add up. One evening, I saw a name flash on her screen. Colin, with a British flag emoji. When I asked about it, her whole demeanor changed. "For you don't trust me," she snapped. "Always watching my phone like jealous husband?" "I'm not jealous, you think because you give me money. You own me. I have friends, Roy. I have life before you." She stormed out of the apartment, leaving me sitting there wondering what the hell had just happened. We'd never fought before. I'd never seen that side of her. For 2 days, I didn't hear anything. I sent text messages that went unanswered. I walked by her bar, but other staff said she wasn't working. Finally, I sent flowers to her apartment with a note apologizing for being paranoid. She called an hour later, crying. "I'm sorry, Roy. I was scared you didn't trust me. My heart cannot handle if you leave me like other men." "Other men?" I wanted to ask about that, but I was so relieved to hear her voice that I let it slide. We made up that night and she seemed more loving than ever. She talked about how much she needed me, how I was the only man who'd ever treated her with respect. "I want to build future with you," she said, tracing circles on my chest. "Real future, not just tourist romance." That's when she brought up the restaurant idea again. She'd found the perfect location in Phuket town, a small space that used to be a travel agency. The rent was reasonable, and it had good foot traffic from both tourists and locals, but she needed $15,000 to secure the lease and buy equipment. "I know is big money," she said, not meeting my eyes, "but this could be our chance. You could be silent partner. When restaurant make profit, you get money back plus more." I hesitated. 15,000 was a significant chunk of my retirement savings, but when Weepa started crying, explaining how this was her only chance to break out of bar work and build something real, I couldn't say no. "You believe in me?" she asked through tears. "You think I can do this?" "Of course I believe in you." I transferred the money the next day. Weepa was overjoyed, kissing me and promising this would change both our lives. She showed me printouts of restaurant equipment, talked about menu ideas, even suggested I could help design the kitchen layout with my construction experience. But after that, things started getting strange. Weepa's schedule became even more erratic. She'd work late shifts that kept her out until 3 in the morning, sometimes not coming home at all. When I asked about it, she'd get defensive. "Bar is expanding operations," she'd explain. "More tourists coming for high season. Manager needs me to work extra hours." "I could pick you up after work," I offered. "Save you the taxi fare." No. Sometimes I finish very late, have to do paperwork, don't want to bother you." When she did come home, she'd be exhausted and distant. She'd shower immediately and fall asleep without the long conversations we used to have. Her phone was constantly buzzing, even in the middle of the night. When I mentioned it, she'd say it was work emergencies or her sick mother needing things. The gaps in her stories started bothering me. She'd mentioned working on Tuesday, but I'd seen her at the market that afternoon when she was supposed to be at the bar. She'd claim her mother needed medicine money, but hadn't I just sent $500 for that last week? One afternoon, I decided to surprise her at work with lunch. I bought some tam from her favorite vendor and walked to the bar. When I asked for Weeper, the staff looked confused. "Weeper not work today," one of the servers said in broken English. "When does she work next?" I asked. The girl looked uncomfortable and called over another staff member. They had a quick conversation in Thai before the second girl answered. "Weeper only work 3 days week. Today not her day." My stomach dropped. If she only worked 3 days a week, where was she all those other nights? What were all those late shifts and emergency meetings she'd been telling me about? That evening, when Weeper came home around midnight, I was waiting for her. "Where were you tonight?" I asked, trying to keep my voice calm. "Working, like always." "Why you ask?" "I went by the bar today. They said you don't work Tuesdays." Her face went white, then red. For a moment she looked like she might run. Then she started crying. Okay. I tell you truth. I have other job. Private English lessons for businessmen. Some nights I teach English, some nights I work bar. I didn't tell you because..." "Because what?" "Because I scared you think wrong thing. Western men always think Thai women who teach English to foreign men are doing something bad." It sounded plausible, but something in her voice felt off. The way she wouldn't meet my eyes, the way her hands were shaking. "Just English lessons?" I pressed. "Roy, I swear to Buddha, just teaching English. But some of my students, they lonely men like you when you first come Thailand. They want to be friend, not just student. I try to be nice because they pay good money." "What kind of friends?" The question hung in the air between us. Weepa's crying got harder. "Some of them, they help me like you help me. With mother medicine, with family problems. But you are only one I love, Roy. You are only one I sleep with, only one I want future with." My heart was pounding. I wanted to believe her, but the pieces weren't fitting together. "How many other men are helping you?" "Roy, please don't make me..." "How many?" "3, she whispered. "But is not like with you. They just lonely, want to feel needed. I give them company, they help my family. Nothing more." 3 other men. 3 other Western men who thought they were helping the woman they loved. Felt sick. "Do they know about me?" "No. And they don't know about each other. Is separate, Roy. Different days, different phones, different everything. You are the only one who matters." I couldn't breathe. Everything we'd built together, every intimate moment, every plan for the future, it was all a lie, or at least it wasn't just mine. "The restaurant money," I said slowly. "Did it come from all of us?" Weeper's silence was the answer. I stood up and walked to the window, looking out at the street where motorcycles buzzed past late-night food vendors. My hands were shaking. "I need their phone numbers," I said without turning around. "Roy, no, please, this will ruin everything. It's already ruined." It took 2 hours of arguing, crying and threats before Weeper finally gave me the contact. Information. Hans, a German retiree who'd been sending her money for 2 years and believed they were engaged. Colin, a British businessman who visited Phuket every few months and had bought her a motorcycle. Trevor, an Australian pensioner who was already working on visa paperwork to bring her to Melbourne. I called Hans first. His English was heavily accented but clear. "Yeah, this is Hans. Who is calling so late?" "My name is Roy. I'm calling about Weeper porn." Silence. "You know Weeper?" he asked slowly. "She's my girlfriend. Has been for 8 months. That is not possible. Weeper is my fiancé. We are getting married next year when my divorce is final." The conversation that followed was surreal. Hans had been visiting Phuket twice a year for 3 years, staying for 2-month stretches. During his visits, he and Weeper were inseparable. Between visits, he sent her money for her family, for her education, for emergencies. He had photos of them together at temples, on beaches, at her family's village. To him, she was his devoted Thai girlfriend, waiting for him to move to Thailand permanently. I called Colin next. He was harder to reach, but when I finally got through, his story was similar but different. He was a successful businessman who came to Phuket quarterly for vacation. Weepa had convinced him she was working toward opening a high-end restaurant that would cater to Western tourists. He'd invested money in her business plan and was planning to bring her to London once she got a visa. Trevor was the most heartbreaking. He'd been widowed 2 years ago and had found Weepa during his first trip to Thailand. She'd told him she was taking care of her sick mother and saving money to study nursing. He'd already started the visa process to bring her to Australia as his partner. All 4 of us agreed to meet the next day at a cafe in Phuket town, away from the tourist areas where Weepa might see us. The meeting was awkward as hell. 4 middle-aged Western men sitting around a table, comparing notes about the woman who'd played us all. Hans brought a photo album. Colin had emails printed out. Trevor showed us the visa paperwork. I had photos on my phone of Weepa cooking in my kitchen, sleeping in my bed, meeting my local friends. What amazed me was how different she'd been with each of us. Hans thought she was traditional and shy, interested in Buddhism and simple village life. Colin believed she was ambitious and cosmopolitan, eager to travel and experience Western culture. Trevor saw her as nurturing and maternal, someone who'd take care of him in his old age. To me, she'd been domestic and nurturing, a woman who appreciated hard work and simple pleasures. She told me she never had foreign boyfriend before, Hans said, shaking his head. Said she was scared of Western men until she met me. She told me the same thing, Colin added. Said I was teaching her about the world outside Thailand. We compared dates, gifts, stories. Weepa had managed to keep us completely separate for years. She had different phones for each relationship, different social media accounts, different versions of her life story. The restaurant investment alone had come from all 4 of us. Hans had contributed 20,000, Colin 15,000. I'd given 15,000, and Trevor had sent 12,000. $62,000, Trevor said quietly, just for the restaurant that doesn't exist. But that wasn't everything. We added up the monthly support payments, the emergency, medical bills for her mother, the school fees for her brother, the motorcycle repairs, the family crisis loans. Over 3 years, Weepa had extracted more than $80,000 from the 4 of us combined. My contribution was $23,000, not just the restaurant money, but months of small payments I'd thought were helping the woman I loved. Hans had lost the most, nearly $35,000 over 2 years. He'd been planning to propose with a diamond ring he'd already bought. Where is she now? Colin asked. None of us knew. Weepa had vanished completely. Her apartment was empty, her belongings gone. The bar staff said she'd quit without notice. Her phone numbers were disconnected. The restaurant space she'd shown me pictures of was empty, with a "for rent" sign that looked like it had been there for months. Trevor flew back to Australia the next day, too ashamed to extend his vacation. Colin returned to London a few days later. Hans stayed another week, walking the beaches where he'd planned to honeymoon, with Weepa, before flying back to Germany. I stayed in Phuket. I was too embarrassed to go home and admit to my kids and friends that I'd been scammed by a Thai bar girl. The stereotype was so humiliating. I'd thought I was smarter than those desperate old men who fell for obvious cons. I'd thought what Weepa and I had was different, real, special. I moved to a different part of Phuket, away from places that reminded me of her. The beaches we'd walked together, the restaurants where she'd taught me to eat with my hands, the temples where she'd shown me how to pray, I avoided them all. Phuket started feeling like a prison instead of paradise. For months, I barely spoke to anyone. I'd nod to my neighbors, buy groceries in silence, eat alone at different restaurants every night so no one would remember me. Every Thai woman who smiled at me seemed suspicious. Every friendly conversation felt like the beginning of another scam. I started seeing manipulation everywhere, in every kind gesture and helpful suggestion. The loneliness was crushing, but it felt safer than trusting anyone again. I'd lie awake at night, replaying conversations with Weepa, looking for signs I'd missed. They were all there. The inconsistent stories, the mysterious phone calls, the way she'd deflect certain questions. I'd been so hungry for love and connection that I'd ignored obvious red flags. But slowly, very slowly, I started learning to live in Thailand without Weeper as my guide and translator. I enrolled in basic Thai language classes at a temple. The monk who taught the class was patient with my terrible pronunciation and never asked for money. I started recognizing people at the local market and learning to negotiate prices without help. One day, an older Thai man named Somchai struck up a conversation with me at the coffee shop. He'd lived in Australia for 20 years before returning to Thailand, so his English was perfect. He didn't want anything from me except conversation. We started meeting regularly, and he taught me about Thai culture, history, politics, things Weeper had never bothered explaining. Many Thai women who date foreign men are good people, Somchai told me one morning. But some learn to tell Farang what they want to hear. You wanted to be needed, yes, to take care of someone. I nodded. Weeper could see this in you. Thai people are very good at reading what foreigners need emotionally. Sometimes they use this knowledge to help, sometimes to take advantage. I found work consulting on construction projects for a hotel company. My experience was valuable, and the steady income helped rebuild my confidence along with my savings. The Thai engineers I worked with treated me with respect based on my knowledge, not my wallet. It felt good to be useful for my skills again, instead of just my pension. After a year, I was able to think about Weeper without feeling physically sick. I understood my role in the deception, my desperate need to feel valued, my willingness to ignore obvious lies because the truth was too painful. I'd been so lonely after my divorce that I'd mistaken manipulation for love, neediness for devotion. I'll never trust romantic relationships the same way again. That part of me is probably broken permanently, but I found peace in Thailand through genuine friendships, meaningful work, and a deeper understanding of the culture. The country I once saw through rose-colored glasses of romance, I now appreciate for its real complexities and authentic beauty. My retirement didn't turn out anything like I'd planned. I thought I'd found love, partnership, a chance to be someone's hero. Instead, I learned hard lessons about desperation, manipulation, and the difference between being needed and being used. But in a strange way, getting my heart broken in Thailand taught me more about myself than 23 years of marriage ever did. Sometimes I wonder about Hans, Colin, and Trevor, whether they found their way back to trusting people, or whether Weeper broke something in them that can't be fixed. I hope they're okay. We were all just lonely men looking for connection in a place that seemed to promise easy happiness. We learned the hard way that there's no such thing as easy happiness, especially when you're carrying so much pain from home. I still live in Phuket, but it's a different place now than the paradise I thought I'd found with Weeper. It's more honest, more complicated, more real. And maybe that's what I needed all along. Not a fantasy romance, but the truth about who I am and what I'm capable of surviving.